Hey everybody, what's going on? There's a lot going on with the Montreal Canadiens right now, a lot to discuss. But before we get started with this video, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to this channel. We'll always be on top of breaking news for the Montreal Canadiens, along with posting a daily, weekly video every Friday around 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So hit that subscribe button and get notified right when these videos drop. There's a lot to talk about right now, but we're going to be focusing on Pierre-Luc Dubois and the recent drama that's kind of been surrounding him and what's coming out from his side along with what's coming out from the insiders in the NHL. There's a lot of chatter about Pierre-Luc Dubois right now, and rightfully so, leading up to the NHL entry draft. You'd like to think that the Winnipeg Jets would want to get a trade done before that point in time. That makes sense from both their side and the player side so that they can work out that contract, sign that 8-year deal in a sign and trade type environment, just like we saw today with Damon Severson and the New Jersey Devils and Columbus Blue Jackets. That type of same deal is going to transpire with the Winnipeg Jets and whoever they ultimately deal Pierre-Luc Dubois to. It ultimately is going to depend on where he ends up, if they have that sign and trade type atmosphere and the return that is going to go with the player. If you look at Pierre-Luc Dubois right now, over the last few days, it's come out that he has asked to be moved by the Winnipeg Jets, and he's going to be giving the team a list of 5 or 6 teams that he would be willing to at least talk about signing an extension with. We already know the rumblings about the Montreal Canadiens involved in the mix there, but it just doesn't make sense for the Montreal Canadiens to pay more or at least pay on par of the asking price that is currently out there for this player. It is no secret that Pierre-Luc Dubois would like to be a part of the Montreal Canadiens moving forward, and it just doesn't make sense for the Montreal Canadiens to pay a hefty price in order for that to make it happen. In addition to the news that came out this week about him officially requesting a trade before signing a potential deal, this just kind of reinforces the idea of what he's been asking for a contract. We now officially have some at least rumors as to what that entails. He's looking for approximately $9 million per season on a long-term deal. And it just doesn't make sense, at least from his point of view, to not ask for something higher than what you're expecting to get. That's part of the negotiations battle. You're not going to ask for something lower and hope to get a bigger number in the long term. You're going to start high. A team is going to come in with what they're willing to offer you, and then you're going to likely find a middle ground. I think that Pierre-Luc Dubois, it makes sense for him to ask for $9 million per season, but I don't believe that he'll ultimately get that when it's all said and done. I believe that he's probably going to come in at the high 7s, low $8 million per year on his next contract. This is just a player that's very strong. He's a two-way center. He brings a lot of different elements to the table that teams covet, especially the Montreal Canadiens. There's no doubt that the Montreal Canadiens are interested in this player, and they're interested in trading for him as well so they can get him locked up on a long-term deal. But if you look at what the Montreal Canadiens did this week with Cole Caulfield signing into that long-term extension just below the cap hit of Nick Suzuki, Ken Hughes made it very clear when he spoke yesterday that it wasn't something that he's talking about with unrestricted free agents and players that he can bring into the fold. This is just how they're dealing with players that are coming off of being an RFA with the club. This is the type of player that came off being his entry-level contract, and you had him as an entry-level contract in Cole Caulfield, so you don't necessarily have a ton of leverage from his side of the equation. But when you're looking at Pierre-Luc Dubois, this is his chance to cash in on a big contract, and he's going to do just that. It just depends on whether or not the Montreal Canadiens are the team that he's going to do that with. I think all signs still point to it being the Montreal Canadiens, but it's going to depend on how these negotiations play out, what other teams around the league that are in that 5 to 6 teams that he is asked to potentially be moved to, what that entails from their perspective in terms of what they're going to move for him in a trade to the Jets. The Jets still want to come out on top in a Pierre-Luc Dubois trade, even if they don't necessarily have as much leverage as they did at one time. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the next couple of weeks, because you know that this would like to be solved before the NHL entry draft, because the Jets would likely want a pick in return as part of the package. So we're likely going to see this come to a head in the next 20 days or so, and that's a big positive for the Montreal Canadiens, because you can kind of continue to build what you have going on in your organization. Whether or not Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to be a part of it or not, you might have an official idea over the next 20 days, and that's a big point of view for Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon as they continue to try to build this hockey club. That's it for me today from Cook's Corner. As always, let me know in the comment section down below. Would you be willing to pay $9 million per season for Pierre-Luc Dubois on a long-term contract? Or what's the most you'd be willing to go? Along with what's the biggest package you'd be willing to let go from the Montreal Canadiens point of view? I'm Zach Cook. We'll see you later.